Hello, this is Astrologer Coach Sonja Francis, and today we're going to be talking about the upcoming new moon in 8.5 degrees of Leo, which will be exact on July 31st at 11:12 p.m. East Coast time in the US, which is also New York time, and on August 1st at 4:12 a.m. London time. So, the new moon, of course, is always an introverted time. It's a time where we go within to learn what we want to align ourselves with for the next 28 days for that particular moon cycle. We will also talk about setting intentions and the best time to do so towards the end of this video, so stay tuned for that. And also please take advantage of all the timestamps that I have added to the description part of this video, below the video. If you're watching this video from a phone, you may not be able to click on the timestamps, but if you watch the video from a computer, you will be able to just click on the numbers next to the descriptions of whatever I'm talking about, and then it will take you right there in the video. So just in case you want to watch the video in shorter sequences, all right, or go back to somewhere where you've been before, or listen to one of the coaching questions again. All right, now this particular new moon is also the end of eclipse season. We've just had eclipses and we're now coming to an end of these eclipses. And so we've received all of our consciousness upgrades. We can move forward with any intentions that we set in early July and start working towards those intentions. Now, the new moon is in fun-loving, extroverted, expressive Leo, and it has us looking at our heartfelt experiences. It's important for us to express ourselves with Leo and to learn about love, really an open heart, a present open heart, an active heart. And in particular, to learn about how those things work together so that we can create from the heart and from a place of joy. Now, think about the keywords for this self-expressed fire sign, which are proud, generous, hospitable, caring, warm, authoritative, active, open, fun-loving. And then just think to yourself, how could I live into those words for the next 28 days? And Leo is ruled by the sun. And so this is the symbol of consciousness, and it's connected to our unique light that we came to shine forth in this particular lifetime. So we each have a sun sign in our birth chart, of course. And so that sun sign shows us where we're shining our unique light and what we're here to explore and express. So what you can ask yourself with this new moon, where could I shine my unique light more brightly? And what brings me joy? And not just in general, but in this very moment, like check in with yourself in the now moment. What brings me joy? And if you want to have access to the new moon questions from this video in writing, and also to the full moon videos every month, feel free to check out my various levels of membership that are available on my website at astrologercoach.com. and to see what's available. If you are already a member, please go to the blog page on my website and look for the tag section and look for the new moon questions tag. You can also look for the new moon in Leo article under the category articles. And tags can be found on the right-hand side of the blog page below the categories. You just scroll down, and that's the case if you're looking at it from a computer. If you're looking at this via your phone, then the tags and categories are all the way at the bottom of the post, of the blog post page. So you have to scroll all the way down, unfortunately. Now, let's go back to the new moon. Leo also represents our creativity. So there are as many ways to be creative and self-expressed as there are selves, as there are sun signs. Indeed, we are definitely creators. We came here to this planet to create. And so we have to consider that we're creating with every thought, with every word, with every action that we're taking. And also, of course, with every feeling that we're endowing these thoughts and words and actions with. So creativity really requires sort of like an innocence and a curiosity and courage and a playfulness. That's the best way to create. And to live it out, we have to tap into the unique spark inside of us that we do connect to in a joyful way. So we want to allow ourselves the freedom to make mistakes. And this is really key here. And this is, when you watch children, for example, you can see how children, they very joyfully play. And when they make a mistake, they kind of like, they go, okay, next, right? And they move on. They just keep joyfully exploring and playing, whether a mistake happens or not. And so creativity really thrives on love and permission and is very much stifled by judgment and fear. So we have to keep that in mind, that if we want to be the creators, the true creators of our life, if we don't want to give our power away to other forces outside of ourselves and really do the creating ourselves, then we need to give ourselves permission to make mistakes. We need to give ourselves a place of openness and space and love, and to release our fears. Because if you look at children, they're very courageous, right? They're not very fearful. They just kind of jump into things. And that's very much the Leo energy, isn't it? It's very courageous. So take a moment to contact your free inner child that plays inside of you, that is ready to play and create. And just ask, what might that inner child need to come out and play? Today, tomorrow, right now. And if you aren't sure, then don't try to guess what it needs to come out and play. Just gently ask, and ask yourself, like, what do I need to come out and play? Right? Gently ask that part of yourself, that innocent, childlike part of yourself, what do I need? Now, this new moon chart is unique in the way that it has 6 retrograde planets. And please bear in mind that there are only 9 planets that can even go retrograde. So that's quite a lot of planets being retrograde right now. And so this means that we have a chance to be more in tune with all of these planets' energies. So what are we talking about here? We're talking about Mercury being retrograde, which is also very strong in this new moon chart right now. Jupiter being still retrograde, soon to be going direct. Saturn, Chiron, Neptune, and Pluto. So these energies of these 6 planets are being accessed from the inside out right now, turning our attention towards what is no longer in alignment with our innermost selves. In other words, this is really an inside job. And so what you want to ask yourself here is the outside world in alignment with my inner world? And if the answer is no, then ask yourself, where are the gaps? What's missing? Where might I start to close some of these gaps? And feel free to take your time with these questions, right? For those of you who are new to my videos, I just want to invite you to either journal or meditate on the questions, to allow yourself to receive the answers rather than seek out the answers, and really listen to the distinction between receiving an answer and seeking out an answer, or needing to have an answer actively. I want you to allow yourself to create space and let yourself have an inquiry with the questions, just so you can be more in alignment with this new moon energy. Now, something else that we want to look at in this new moon chart are some of the aspects and how the planets interact with each other. Now, Mars and Venus are currently also moving through Leo, and this is adding more weight, obviously, to the Leo energy. The more planets that we have in the same sign, the more energy is being lived in that place in our chart and in that particular sign. Venus is very closely aligned with the new moon. And so this really encourages us to be more aware of the feminine energies, of the heart connections. So it's really about, connectivity, receiving, enjoying, collaborating, just to name a few feminine Venus components. And also, all those planets in Leo really encourage us to align with our heart and engage playfully in joyful activity. And so we also get an opportunity to connect to our inner child and to children in general. And we might say that this builds on an earlier question that we already kind of posed at the very beginning, which is what brings me joy? You know, and not just in general, but in this very moment of now. And what drains my vitality? And what energizes me? These are very important questions to ask, you know, during this Leo time. Because when we investigate what energizes us and what drains us, we get a sense for where our heart's desires are. And we get a sense for where our joy lies. Because whatever energizes us usually gives us joy. Now, some other questions you can ask here is, what have I always wanted to do? Or what have I always wanted to be? And what if I just for right now, and just as an experiment, I met life with a courageously open heart? And so just really give yourself some time to investigate some of these questions. And please also remember, you don't have to work with all of the coaching questions. I would advise you to use the ones that resonate most with you. Now, the new moon Venus alignment also trines Chiron in Aries and squares Uranus in Taurus. So let's talk a little bit about that. Now, Chiron, which is the wounded healer, really enhances our ability to heal issues around self-expression and accessing our creative energies more fully. And you know, things flow nicely when there's a trine. So we really feel excited about new healing modalities or unusual approaches to our creative projects. And so there is an opportunity here to be really compassionate towards ourselves and others, and also for connecting to our inner child. Again, the inner child is very much connected to that Leo energy. And maybe to find a healing between the wounded inner child and the free creative inner child, right? Because we have both of those components living within ourselves. And so maybe there's a way to connect the two. Now, as best as you can, have fun whenever connecting with others. Bring a healing quality to the table by tapping into your inner joy and your inner compassion, exploring things in a holistic way, and taking healthy risks. And of course, always with Chiron, you want to include being kind to yourself, being kind to both of those inner children, the wounded one and the creative one. Now ask yourself, might my joy and my courageously open heart help the collective healing of the world? And might that in turn help my own healing? And so we really want to, you know, connect to what is healing to the world, what is healing to myself. So just kind of allow ourselves to engage in that kind of inquiry. Now that's Chiron's contribution to this aspect. Now let's talk a little bit about Uranus. Uranus highlights where we are being called to break old patterns and make radical shifts, collectively and individually speaking. And it is exalted at the time of the new moon because it is slowing down in preparation for its retrograde phase that begins on August 11th. So whenever a planet changes directions, it will slow down before it changes directions and after it has changed direction. So there's sort of like a slowing down process, halt, and then a starting to speed up process again. But throughout that time where that planet is moving slower, that's what's called a station phase. And that's when the planet is louder and more exalted. And so we will relate to this Uranus station retrograde phases we will relate that to our own birth charts in our next forecasting forum as well. So for those of you who aren't familiar with the forums, it's a 90-minute webinar that I conduct every month. And the next one is coming up on August 15th. And if you would like to join live or register for an MP4 video presentation or just get more information about this webinar, then click on the link below this video where I talk about the monthly forecasting forums, and that will take you to my website, to the page, to the forecasting forum page. Or you can also go to my homepage and scroll down to where it says the countdown for the forecasting forums, and you can register there as well. Now, as a reminder to all star and superstar members of my online community, you're automatically registered and you will receive an email on the day of the webinar to join live, as well as another email with a link to the video replay of the forum within 24 hours of the live event. Okay, so just keep that in mind for those of you who are new to my memberships. And let's also talk a little bit about the square that's happening between the new moon and Venus alignment in Leo and Uranus in Taurus. So that square really invites us to stretch and grow in our individuation process. So anything that's past conditioning, right? Anything that's past what we're used to on a social level, on a conditioned level, whether that's from family or from society. And so we might experience some unexpected shifts in our lives in regards to romantic relationships, creative projects, courageous new avenues that we're exploring right now. And so some questions that you can ask yourself here in relationship to the square is, how uniquely myself do I allow myself to be? And where do I stop myself from enjoying my unique gifts? And could I grant myself permission to value that I am different from others and that others are different from me and that that's okay? So again, with these questions, just simply allow yourself to engage in the inquiry via journaling or meditation, or just simply have these questions in the back of your mind as you go through these next 28 days. And as some of that stretching will become apparent, where you feel, maybe there's some anxiety or some uncertainty, something where you feel like this is unfamiliar or different from what I'm used to. And so that during those times, it might be most helpful to engage with this inquiry. And then some other questions you can ask yourself too is, what if I gave a voice to all my talents, even the crazy or out there ones? And where do I huddle down when I could perhaps stand tall? And what needs to break down for me to have a breakthrough? And sometimes with Uranus, we have to allow for breakdowns in order to experience a breakthrough. And that can seem a little scary, of course, because who wants to have a breakdown, right? I mean, breakdowns are not usually something where people go, oh, yay, let me have a breakdown today, because it's just what's needed, right? So we usually have a little resistance towards breakdowns. And so what we want to really maybe ask ourselves, like, is there something in our lives where we kind of feel a stuckness, or where we feel such a strong tension that we know that in order for us to get to the other side of that, something has to give, right? So, and that giving is sort of like a breakdown, and that can be a small or medium or a large breakdown. It depends on what it is that you're currently dealing with in your life. So just take your time with some of these questions. Now, Mercury comes to a complete standstill on the day of the new moon and ends its 3-week retrograde phase, only 45 minutes after the new moon becomes exact. So this really indicates a heightened awareness of our thoughts regarding past issues, since Mercury is in Cancer right now. And so we might be struggling to move forward with something, most likely connected to home or safety or family or feeling nurtured, or feeling kind of like connected to ourselves on an emotional level. So what you can ask yourself here is, what's in my face right now? Because whenever a planet stops, there is something that's very acutely in our face when that happens. And what am I trying to move beyond? And rather than getting resistant around whatever is in your face, I want you to experiment with being grateful for whatever is in your face and whatever you're noticing, because that awareness is really valuable for us to be able to move forward, as Mercury starts to gain speed again and as it starts to move forward again. Now, Mercury also aligns with the North Node in Cancer and opposes Pluto in Capricorn. So let's talk about that a little bit and see what that might bring us. Now, there could be some intense conversations and connections where we want to feel more real rather than superficial. So we want to also dig out the truth about our feelings and the world that we've built or that we're currently building. So we really need to kind of engage in a deeper process, in a digging into our feelings and digging into the truth of something, digging into, what's not working for us or what doesn't feel truthful or authentic at this point. And so as best as you can, really try not to obsess about what someone is saying to you or what you've been hearing, or how you may feel hurt by some things that are really meant to empower you or that are meant to support you. And so what you can ask yourself here is, could I allow myself to go deeper and tap into my true inner power, into the place that truly feels that's grounding me or sourcing me in some way, that's helping me be me. And if you notice that you're taking things a little personally and starting to get defensive or starting to want to have, a struggle or a fight with someone, take a deep breath and just ask yourself, is this really about me? Or is it about a past issue? Or is it about another person's past issue? Or how can I ground myself in the here and now rather than, getting attached to the past or past conditionings? And what might change if I decide to focus on nurturing myself right now? And so this last question is important because whenever we find ourselves in these situations when we're trying to defend something or we're trying to get our power back in some way, or we're getting a little bit obsessed about something that's occurring in the moment. If we can take a time out in that moment and take care of ourselves and take care of, whether that's physically or emotionally or mentally or something that feels really nurturing to ourselves, if we're able to do that in that moment, then whatever we have going on with another person is not going to feel as intense and is not going to gain energy and start to create maybe a deeper, more intense issue. So that's just something to think about. Now, this aspect might also bring up some very deep issues that need to be discussed. So something that might have been brewing under the surface, it may be something that actually might need to come out into the open, might need to be looked at, might need to be aired and talked about. But again, we want to still consider feeling fully nurtured before we make that attempt to talk about something, before we go into the ring and say, hey, what's up here? I need to talk about this. Make sure that you feel fully taken care of first. And then, the other thing with this opposition is, we might feel obsessive in our thinking. We might want to persuade other people of a certain point of view. We might be very insistent about something, or about wanting to know the truth about something, or wanting to expose something that's untrue or not authentic from our standpoint. So these are all things that might be part of this opposition. So what you can ask yourself is, what past memories or experiences no longer leave me feeling empowered out there in the world? And feel free to really take your time with this one, because there could be a lot there. And might I be ready to release them at last, these past memories or past experiences? And have I come to the point where I can truthfully say, I've had enough? So sometimes what I want to say here is, like, sometimes, you know, we go through life and we tolerate certain things, or we accept certain things because it's familiar, because we're used to engaging with other people in a particular way, or we're used to engaging with ourselves in a particular way, for that matter. And so, but sometimes these patterns that we have, they can be destructive. They can be, you know, patterns that really disempower us instead of actually making us fully feel alive. And so the thing is, though, with these patterns is we will not attempt to change them or do anything about them until and only once we have truthfully been able to say to ourselves, I've had enough. This is it. I don't want to do this anymore, whatever the pattern is. So you want to really ask yourself, have I come to the point where I can truthfully say, I've had enough? Because if you're not there yet, you're not going to be willing to really change that pattern. You're not going to want to do anything about it. So you really have to come to that point of, have I had enough? And if you have reached that point, then ask yourself, am I willing to cut out anything that is toxic and poisonous, no matter how scary this may seem to me? And so this is just, again, this is a question that might take a little bit longer to answer. So don't rush into answering that question if you want to engage with this. And this is, you know, this is something really complex. So if you need help with, engaging in this inquiry, you know, then also I would encourage you to seek out help and ask for other people's help who have experience in supporting you with something like this, you know, like a therapist or a coach or someone that you trust. And one thing that might help with this aspect too is accessing your inner Neptune. So Neptune is in Pisces currently and is actually making a sextile to Pluto and a trine to Mercury. And so what we can gain by accessing this Neptune energies, we really can step more fully into the space inside of us that is connected to universal love, which is a non-personal love. It's just feeling love, right? Being loving, being kind, right? That's universal love. Or the space inside of us that is trusting our intuitive voice in our connection to source or God or the universe, really stepping more fully into that trust. And also stepping into the space of a greater connection to self-compassion and self-acceptance. All of those things would be supporting us in this process of really engaging with these questions. Now, I will also give a talk on react versus respond. Where in the chart can we learn about our emotional maturity? On Saturday, August 3rd at 3 p.m. Pacific time and 6 p.m. Eastern time, New York time. And my segment is one of 12 talks from a variety of astrologers that have been invited to speak at a 2-day virtual astrology summit presented by Astrologer University, which is called Fresh Voices of Astrology. So feel free to mark your calendar if this sounds interesting to you, if you would like to listen to that talk. It's free. And it promises to be really amazing. It's like a whole weekend of free talks. So feel free to click on the link below this video to register or to get more information about my talk and other people's talks and the whole weekend. It will be available underneath this video. And if you don't see it for some reason, then feel free to email me at info@astrologercoach.com and I will send you all the information. Now, lastly, I want to mention Mars in Leo again, because Mars makes a trine to Jupiter in Sagittarius and quincunxes both Neptune in Pisces and the South Node in Capricorn at the time of the new moon. So let's unpack that a little bit. There's a lot of aspects here, of course. And so the trine between Mars and Jupiter brings a lot of optimism and enthusiasm and expansion to our personal goals, creative projects, and explorations in general. Now, our positive attitude helps us to take risks that get us unstuck. So if there was anything in the last several months where you've been feeling kind of stuck with something, this is the time now to really move something forward and to get unstuck and to maybe even blast through some challenges that you've been having. What you can ask yourself is, what could I tackle right now that seemed impossible in the past? So anything that you can think of where you felt like, I don't know, I don't think so, too challenging or whatever, now is the time with this new moon, now is the time to start fully engaging in those things, because we're going to have more energy and more courage. Now the quincunx that is also connected to Mars creates a yod aspect, which is also called the finger of God. And Mars is the focus planet of that yod aspect. And so this means we're being invited to take a look at our masculine energies and how we're using them. How are we engaging with the masculine within us? And so what I want you to think about is that Mars, represents the masculine principle of assertion, willpower, and protection, and some other things as well. But those are like the three major ones. And so what you want to ask yourself here is, what stirs me to action? When I act on something, what stirs me to do that? And what am I willing to defend, right? What am I willing to defend or protect, you could say? And how do I assert myself? In what ways do I assert myself? When do I assert myself? And what am I willing to fight for? Or what am I passionate about? And what lights my fire, right? These are all Mars questions and Mars and Leo questions. Now, let me talk a little bit about the fiery energy, because since Mars is a fiery planet and Leo is a fiery sign, we want to talk a little bit of like, what's a healthy fiery expression, right? So healthy fire is fed by joy and authenticity and self-determination. However, our fire can very much be extinguished in several ways. In one way, we could blow it out by too much air, which would be if we're like over analyzing something, right? When our mind, because the air energy is mental energy, right? So if our mind goes into overdrive and starts over analyzing things or pulling things apart too much, and we start going into problem solving all the time and criticism and things like that, that can really flatten the fire. Another thing that can flatten the fire is if it gets drowsed by excess water, if we become emotionally blocked. So if there are emotions or feelings in us that are not flowing, that are kind of getting stagnant and blocked, and where we're suppressing something, or where we're getting hooked on a feeling and we're getting obsessed with something that we're holding on to, right? Anything like that could really, blow out that fire. And then the last thing that can blow out fire is when it gets buried under the earth. If we're resisting to go beyond traditional values or comforts, that can really also stifle fire, because if we're holding on to traditional, we're holding on to certain comforts that we're having in our lives, we're not making space for for fire to really, for our joy and our energy to really move forward. We're keeping things a little bit stuck. So when we're experiencing a lack of fire, we tend to have low self-esteem, or we feel timid, or merely apathetic. And we basically feel the opposite of passionate, excited, or full of life, because that's usually where the fire, when there's a lot of fire, we feel passionate, we feel excited, or we feel full of life, right? So if you detect a lack of fire for the next 28 days, if there's something where you're not really fully engaging with that Mars energy, ask yourself, what activities bring me joy? So again, we're coming back to the joy factor, right? What action could I take right now to feel good in my body and soul? And really like fully engage in that question, you know, what actions can I take right now to feel good in my body and soul? You know, really feel into that. And am I ready to commit to my own happiness and take a playful approach to life? Because, you know, when we're getting too serious in life, and this is also an earth quality, you know, being very serious and sort of determined. When we get a little bit too serious, you know, we tend to stifle our happiness, because we tend to stifle a playful approach to life. So to sum it all up for this new moon, it invites us to reconnect to what lights us up, to what we love, and to how we want to express that in the world. This new moon also wants us to experience joy that is supported by the framework of humility and healing. And it also invites us to tap into our healthy masculine by acting from an authentic place, coming from the heart in every moment. What might it feel like to create, not for the sake of achievement or gain, but out of love, joy, and fun, for example? And so for the next 4 weeks, I invite you to pause occasionally and just ask yourself these questions. What am I grateful for in my life? How could I express that gratitude? To whom might I express that gratitude? And could I express my joy kindly and compassionately? You know, how could I go about engaging others in a joyful dialogue that aligns with my inner truth? All right, and so, you know, if you have an ascendant or any personal planets in 6 to 11 degrees of Leo, Aquarius, Taurus, or Scorpio, then of course this new moon is going to impact you more so than others. But I want to invite you to take a look at your birth chart and to see where does 8.5 degrees of Leo land in your birth chart, because that house placement and that area of life where that 8.5 degrees hits in your chart, that is where the new moon will kind of activate something in your life. And so you want to just take a look at that area of life to see what is being activated in terms of joy, in terms of, you know, needing to find your way back to a healthy, fiery approach in that area of your life. Now you can also check out my 30-minute class on how to read my birth chart. You can get free access to this class via my homepage at astrologercoach.com, and just scroll down on the homepage all the way down to where you see a box that says free class, and then just click on that box. And last but definitely not least, we want to talk about setting intentions. So the new moon is also the best time to set some powerful intentions for this moon cycle. And the best time for intention settings is usually soon after the new moon becomes exact, and definitely not during a moon void, of course, phase. So for this month, the best time to set intentions would be between 11:12 p.m. on July 31st and 4:48 p.m. on August 1st. And then again on August 2nd from 9:20 a.m. until 11:12 p.m. And all of that is Eastern Daylight Savings Time, New York time zone in the US. So if you live in a different time zone than US East Coast time, and converting time zones isn't your thing, I suggest that you just join my Facebook fan page or follow me on Twitter. I will be posting reminders during those times on July 31st, on August 1st, on August 2nd, right around the time when it is the most potent to set your intentions, to let you know. And so if you just join me on Facebook and Twitter, then you will see when those times pop up. And then just at that moment, sit down and set your intentions. And for more info about setting intentions, go to my website, go to my blog page, and then look for astrology articles or a tag for new moon intentions on the right side of the blog page if you look at it from your computer. And just click on, astrology articles or new moon intentions, and there will be an article talking about how to set your intentions. What's the process and how to best do that. Now, if you want to sign up for my free monthly newsletter, you can do that via my homepage at astrologercoach.com or send us an email to info@astrologercoach.com and just write newsletter in the subject line. And the newsletter gets sent out approximately once a month with special offers, with my new moon video, with announcements about my forecasting forums or other courses or retreats that I'm doing. So feel free to sign up for that. And if you have any general questions about astrology, you can always reach out, and I'm happy to answer those at info@astrologercoach.com. If you have any personal questions that require for me to pull up your birth chart, I will invite you to book a reading with me on my website at astrologercoach.com. Or you can also ask questions connected to what's coming up within the next 30 to 40 days when you join the next monthly forecasting forum on August 15th. So those are both valid options. And of course, the monthly forecasting forum is going to be less expensive than booking a reading. So if it's anything that's connected to what's coming up, within the next 30 to 40 days, I would say that's the better option. Now, my members will see me in 2 weeks around the time of the full moon. So we can look at how far we've come since setting our new moon intentions. And for everyone else, I will connect with you again in about 4 weeks from now for the next new moon video. So have a fantastic new moon. Remember, it's an introverted time to go within, to really get connected with the energies so we can get a sense for what we're wanting to create for the next 28 days. All right, have a good one. This is Astrologer Coach Sonja Francis.